is a type of the swastika, but it's actually made out of wheat. And it's because it's about food. And then she goes into the Brid's cross here, and she says Brid, Irish, Scottish, breed, also Bridget, bride, brigade, and Gerald says he remembers St. Bridget of the Roman Catholic Church. That's a famous they brought her out of Celtic. Halloween is what they brought out of. Brought out of Halloween. Halloween is just a modern name for Samhain, ancient word. And it goes on to say her name comes from the Old Irish brig, meaning power. That's where Britain gets their name. Her Gaulish name, Gaul. The Gauls were the Celts. The Celts were Druid worshippers. I started to tell you. I need to go ahead and put it on the board. Gauls were their nationality, Celts. Celt was like, it was their identity, like white or black, or even though they were barbarians, they were, like we have the United States, we've got blacks and whites, we've got Hispanics and blacks and white and reds and so forth. Well, this would be they would go and mix in with another society, and they were Celts by their identity. But Gaul was their nationality, and their religion was Druid. And that was where Halloween comes from. And they rampaged across Europe, and that's what Constantine was afraid he was going to lose in the empire. But let me read this. She was a great mother goddess. Oh, wait a minute, read this. Her goddess name is Brigindo, and she is probably the source of the Anglo goddess Brigantia and Britannia. We recognize some of these names. She was the great mother goddess of Ireland. At one time in history, most of Ireland was limited in praise and worship of her. She probably was one and the same with Dana, the first great mother goddess of the Irish. Brid represents the supernatural mother, fertility. See, they're all fertility gods. They would come up in the spring. In creative inspiration, she has also been worshipped as a warrioress, a protectress. That's the Roman goddess. I can't think of her name. The goddess of war. She's one of the goddesses of wars. I'm thinking of another one, but Athena was one of the goddesses of war. A healer, a guardian of children. A guardian of children. She was a demon. They were all demons. That are guardian angels. Guardian angels and demons were the same thing. A slayer of serpents, a sovereign, a goddess of fire and the sun. Still other sources say she was the goddess of agriculture, animal husbandry, medicine, crafting, and music. She was accredited with inventing the Irish mourning wail called keening when she mourned for her son Ruadan, and every one of them had a son that died that they mourned for, just like Mary mourned for Jesus. You could read all that into these things. It's nothing but a corruption of the truth. Her child by her husband Bress was killed in battle. Part of her essence is still said to reside in Beansidhe, the fairy spirit, and fairies were demons, whose keening can be heard at night before death. In the 5th century, her shrine at Kildare was desecrated and adopted as a holy site by Christian missionaries who turned her into the Saint Bridget. Christian missionaries, not Christian missionaries, Roman Catholic missionaries. They latched onto her sky goddess aspect and nicknamed her the Queen of Heaven. Stuck it in there with her. All right, let me give you just a couple more of these, and I'm going to get on to this other thing. I've been saying I'm going to document. I've got so many things. She's got a lot of tremendous information in here. Then she goes into Guinevere, one of the Arthur the Knights. She goes into Arthur and Guinevere and Merlin, and they were all, like she says in here, they were thinly veiled sun deities. And it's amazing. I just underlined one of the lines in here. That's all I'll read. Guinevere, her name means white shadow. Her duty is to blend the king's energy with the energy of the land. You remember that especially if you watch the movie Excalibur. They kept saying the land was the important thing. But the land is what, that's what the land was what produced for Israel, gave crops to Israel, wasn't it? It's all about the land. I'll give you the land. It's just a corruption of truth. Let me read a couple more real short excerpts so I can just get on with this. I've got this thing marked up, Lady of the Lake. She goes into the Lady of the Lake. If you go into Hastings, they go into the Lady of the Lake. If you go into Water Gods in Hastings, they go into the same thing. They verify what she's saying. She verifies what they're saying. Always get some verification from both points, especially if you're going to read out of something like this. They go into the Lady of the Lake, and we got Lady of the Lake Catholic Church right over here off the interstate, don't we? Lady of the Lake was in all of their gods and goddesses, they were a mixture. Sometimes you had several of them in the same system that were the same person. Like Morgan Le Fay was the same thing as Lady of the Lake, even though in the movie they got him as two people. And Arthur's sister, Arthur pulls the sword out of the stone. Jesus is the rock. The Word of God comes out of Jesus and is the sword. And Arthur's supposed to take care of the land, and he was a sun god. And I'm talking fast because I don't even have time to get to all this. I like to read this about, they talk about the sword in the churchyard stone. Morgan Le Fay. This is amazing because in myth she was the daughter of Le Fay, a glamorous Welsh sea goddess. As the half-sister of King Arthur, she possibly was once a goddess of Glastonbury Tort. Now they say some of these women, some of them were actual people in history that they renamed them, took them into... They did the same thing the Roman Catholics did. They deified them as saints among their gods. Can you see what I'm saying? They'd take a person and make them a saint among their god system. A sacred pagan site intimately associated with the Arthurian myth. And then she says, the root of her name, Moor, means sea. This is amazing. And Le Fay means fairy or demon. She was the sea fairy, the sea demon, and you move that over, you can trace this all around these other cultures, and you can end up over here at Joppa, or end up among the Philistines, and you end up with Dagon. Dagon was the fish god or the sea demon, and he was a demon, and it comes from dog, is the word fish in the Hebrew. The sea demon. It's just a mishmash and it's a mess. And I wish I can't even pronounce most of the names of these gods and goddesses. There's hundreds of them in this book. Hundreds. Goodness sakes. And then I'm just kind of skipping around, giving you a few things here. She goes into the triple goddess. She is always the same moon. It was the waning moon and the crescent moon. What they did was duplicate the sun waning and waxing. Waxing to die, and wane means to build up again. So they have that system, and it's like a duplicate, or it's like an antitype of the Trinity. And she's got many antitypes of the Trinity all through here. I'd like to read this about Arthur. She says, King Arthur. He goes right along. He is druidic. He is part of the Halloween system, the druid system. Goddess May Queen figure, and was mortally wounded in battle by his son Modred, who's no doubt a picture of Cain throughout this. He was the son that turns against the god or the goddess. Son of Modred by Morgan Le Fay. Arthur's body was carried to Avalon to sleep, and that's going across the river to heaven, and await the time when he is needed so he can be resurrected. Therefore, he is the sacrificial God-king in the purest sense. Other stories say he was changed into a raven upon his death, and Celtic folklore often sees dead figures turned into birds, an archetypal symbol of transition to the spirit world. Writing at the end of the 19th century, Celtic mythologist Sir John Rhys believed the Arthurian stories paralleled that of Fionn mac Cumhal of Irish lore, the Round Table. Oh, by the way, Hitler brought that system back and built him a round table in a castle with 12 seats in it. And he had his 12 top generals sat at that table. And that's been on History Channel. Huh? Do you remember? We saw that. He had an exact duplicate. See, he thought these were gods come down from heaven, just like some of these stupid preachers that say this is demons, that these are fallen angels come down to heaven and marry women. Angels neither marry nor given in marriage, according to the 22nd chapter of Matthew. They can't copulate with women. They don't have the same sexual organs to bring about childbirth. It's crazy, isn't it? And by the way, the Atlantis myth is another myth on the fallen angels from heaven. This was a superior race that sunk into the Atlantic, supposedly. It's nothing but